Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are back on K2War. My name is Tony Jacopin. The topic of the day is on the BRIC, and more specifically, it deals with the fact that, well, it's more a question. Can we say that the BRIC countries will be the worldwide growth champions in the next decade? You will say, what does the BRIC? Simple. Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Why do some people, some analysts consider that they may be the champion of the next decade? Well, simple. They were the champion of last decade, accumulating 70%, 70, 30% of the worldwide growth in such a way that nobody thinks that they can be overtaken. Nevertheless, in 2013, the four BRIC have faced some difficulties. It can be in terms of depreciation of the currency with India, with the rupee, 30%. Russia has been pretty unstable. Alternative to Putin situation with Ukraine. If we consider China, what's up with Xi, and last but not least, Brazil with the World Cup. So this is the reason why it seems that it will be like this picture of the Great Wall. It will be a steady issue just to make the necessary reform to be sure that this country keep on growing. So when we're talking about the major hurdles that this country may face, we need to consider that due to the past history, we can say that there's a big hurdle at 4,000 USD. And in India, you need to remember that the GDP per capita is only $1,843. So India has several challenges to face in the upcoming years. You have a challenge of poverty, more specifically rural poverty, industrializing the country to face the competition of China. They're not so far away. And in that sense, the election of Modi, the champion of industrialization in the state of Gujarat, may help. Now, due to some difficulty in terms of infrastructure, the challenge is still relevant. And this is the reason why the ability of India to grow under this factor has to be taken into consideration. Then you've got some issues concerning language, for instance, Northern India moving and always a more important usage of non-English language. Difficulty to understand why Southern India stopped growing as it used to, and Northern India, which was a little more laggard, has been able to move much faster. So these are some dimensions that concerning India, you need to keep that in mind. This is the first point. Second point, concerning China. China is in a much more favorable situation than India. GDP is almost 3 times higher in terms of GDP per capita. So, big advantage. Nevertheless, you've got some difficulties. To double the GDP per capita is a difficult issue. And it's almost impossible that they manage it. Keeping the productive specializations they have, I mean, focusing exclusively on export, they will have to necessarily develop the domestic market. Developing the domestic market means necessarily favor internal infrastructure. They're great, so that's another problem. But just being able to incorporate talent into the company. The unique problem at this point is that there's a scarcity of talent. Wages are going up and up and up, which is a major difficulty to attract companies, because many companies consider that wage in China will keep on growing, and they say, well, in 5 or 10 years, even if I go into the hinterland, it won't be enough. Price will be too high. So there's some challenges concerning the evolution of China. But the situation is not exclusively the case for India and China. Some other countries that were able to go above the barrier of the 10,000 USD per capita are still facing with other countries that are much cheaper manifolds. We can mention here, for example, Russia, Brazil, Mexico, and Turkey, compared to Philippines, India, and Indonesia. In terms of manifolds, in terms of capacity of skill force, of engineers, it's the ability to keep on their current competitive advantage is far from being obvious. And this is the reason why, let's say, there may be some major difficulties for these countries to make the adequate reforms, either in terms of macroeconomic level or at the micro level. Same situation for countries that are even more developed. Basically because there's some new cluster emerging, new ways of building PCs, for instance, in the case of Taiwan, positioning of Malaysia. Where should they go? Should they stay in the commodity hub? Should they move to the financial hub? Where should they go? This is an issue. And for Mexico, it would be a situation between have they done the right partnership as they were supposed to in 1993? Everybody say, wow, Mexico has been saved. They will never bankrupt again. But when you see that US not growing that much, but even if now it's a bit better, makes the point that, hey, maybe the winning strategy was Brazil, was the Brazilian one. So you can see it's really difficult to identify who will be the winner and who will be the losers. And if we add the several variables on top of that, you will understand that the situation is even more complex. You will see that some countries, here in the case of Russia, they need to have a really high price of the oil barrel. Talking about the price that has to be above 100 USD. So it's complex, but not only for Russian companies that are eager to export, or for the government. It's difficult for all consuming good companies that are going to be based or that are eager to develop the middle class. Because basically, if there's no development of the middle class, because the debt is too high, well, basically, they won't be able to develop. The middle class won't be able to develop. So this is the reason why it's really important to pay lots of attention to these macroeconomic factors. Well, depreciation of the currencies, commercial war increasing, country, and this is the important one, countries with high private debt and company debt. This is not so well known, the situation in China and South Korea, and this may provoke a huge turmoil in Asia. And because Asia is a workshop of the world in the world. Why? Because private debt, if there's some shaky issues in terms of real estate, basically private debt will be affected first, then the state will be forced to take it, so it would be less ability to borrow for companies, and because the company debt are so high, well, it will cost far more for them. So they may have, let's say, kind of subprime phenomena in Asia, in these two countries, first of all. So this is the reason why it's really difficult. And last but not least, as you can see, since two there's a search of a new mantras. So it can be GDP, it can be high percentage of people living under the threshold of poverty, it can be GDP per capita, and now the new one is about 5% annual growth. So you can listen to this issue. In my company, we only invest in 5% growth company. Well, watch out. This is something that it can be dangerous, because most of the time, when you consider this element, basically you say, hey, I calculate my VPN, my NPV, sorry, my net present value, and what's up? So you say, well, it's going to grow at this pace, so necessarily I will be able to capture this market share, will be growing, the country's GDP of this country is increasing. and so on, and I make it easily. And you put the contingency plan, blah, 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 you calculate it and fail. Well, a bit more complex. Why? Because if we consider that we've got around 200 countries. To make it simple, we're going to say 210. Imagine you got 180 emerging, 30 developed. If we consider the 180 emerging, you can consider that only 30 of them, one third, so only 60 of them were able to grow at the pace of during 1 decade of super 5% per annum. Among the 60, only 25%, so 15 were able to grow at this pace for 2 decades. Okay, so 60, 15, 6 for 4 decades, 2 for 5 decades, and when you consider the pedigree of the newcomer in this division about being able to grow above 5% per annum, I want to criticize this country if they're making some substantial reform. Angola, Tanzania, Armenia, Tajikistan. But watch out, will they be able to grow for 20 years like that? I think it shouldn't be forgotten previous behavior, previous crisis in this country, because otherwise many mistakes will be done. And this is the reason why discrimination should be integrated. When we refer to discrimination, we refer to the ability to set up some variables at the macroeconomic level on one side, at the sector level on the other side, and obviously you need to travel a lot to these countries to face the change of the population, feeling of the population. Are they keeping investing? Because these are some elements that you won't find out in presentation, even in K2-1. So this is the reason why, don't forget it. Focus it, enjoy K2-1, have a nice day. Bye-bye.